Good morning. Sue's trying to hide out of the
I'm
camera.
just actually trying to get changed.
We just thought we'd get dressed
I
in
didn't know
front
we were
today.
live. Hello from Friday morning Pods with Posh and Paul live. Today we're going to have a little chat about accountability and what it means to take responsibility for our actions, which is the opposite of blame. We all love blaming. I love blaming because when you blame, you take control back, don't you? You take control of the situation by putting it on somebody else and you say, I am not at fault.
Yeah, and also we don't like to be at fault, do we? We don't like to think we've done wrong. We don't like to think we've upset a person with our actions and that something we have done is wrong. It's actually quite confronting to accept that about ourselves, but actually that is usually the case, and it's not a case of blaming others. I mean, how many times do you hear people say, I'm sorry, but? No, there shouldn't ever be a but after the sorry. It's often, I'm sorry, but you did this, this and this, so therefore I behave like that. That's not okay still. It's about taking accountability for your reactions and the steps you take in life.
So the definition of accountability is the willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions, words and thoughts. And it's also the willingness to have one's actions questioned by responsible others. So yesterday it was really interesting. I'll tell you a bit of a story. I had my two children that had a falling out, and both of them were to blame for taking responsibility for different parts of the falling out. And so when I explained to one person what was going on, they blamed and they suggested the reasons why. They justified their actions as to why they'd done it. When I said it to the other child, sorry, I'm losing my voice this morning. When I said it to the other child sat there and said, you're right, I've hurt your feelings by saying this, I should never have said it, I own that behaviour, I won't do it again, I can see how it's hurt you. And there's two completely different reactions. And one looked really mature and responsible, and the other one took no accountability at all. So there's a few lovely phrases as well. Leaders inspire accountability through their ability to accept responsibility before they place blame. So leadership is about accountability, and we role model to others, especially if we're parents, taking responsibility. And if we can do that with our children, we're teaching our children to be accountable as well.
In other words, says when you blame and criticise others, you are avoiding some truth about yourself. And it is because, and just think about, just a normal everyday kind of scenario, you're in the house, whether with your partner or a child, and the dishes aren't done, so you're rushing round, and then you have to do them, and other things happen, you haven't to hang the laundry out, you haven't to do this, and then they ask for something and you end up snapping at them. And then you say, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just so busy. Well, it's not really okay to still snap, and it's not okay to use nasty words on people or a nasty tone of voice. It's actually being accountable, so actually taking a step back and looking at yourself and saying, actually, I'm just rushing around. Can I do this in a slightly different way, or should I have behaved like that? No, actually, I'm just sorry for snapping, and I shouldn't have done that. That's a behaviour pattern that I'd actually quite like to change within myself, rather than blame a situation or another person. And that's just a really simple thing. Blame goes on to a whole different ball game, doesn't it?
Yeah, it says take accountability because blame is the water in which many dreams and relationships drown. I love that, because the very thing we often judge or condemn or criticise somebody else for, the faults we see in somebody else, are actually often the manifestation of our own very weakness. We see in somebody else the weakness we carry ourselves. So if you find yourself blaming somebody else, then look at what you're blaming them for before you speak those words and take accountability for your role in that. So my marriage broke up in 2003. I spent many years blaming my ex-husband for the role he had in the breakup of the relationship. Then I learnt to take accountability myself and responsibility for the role I had to play. And the minute I did that meant I could address my weaknesses, my problems, and could go on my journey to becoming more of a whole person.
Absolutely.
And very empowering.
Yep. And when I'm coaching couples, or even, not necessarily even couples, sometimes it's children and parents, there is usually an element of blame involved. And especially with couples, I would say, when there's a breakup, it's always like, well, we broke up because that person did this, this and this, and they won't change. And like, as you just said, that's what you did for many years when your marriage broke up. And I had to look at myself really, strongly when I was in an abusive relationship and that marriage broke up, because it would have been so easy for me to blame, well, I've been abused and I've been this and, sad victim. But actually, no, I definitely had some accountability within that as well. I allowed things to happen and I will take the responsibility for my side. But it's so interesting when you do see warring couples and it's just always somebody else's fault, always somebody else to blame. It's very easy to walk around in that state blaming another person. However, it's never, ever, always somebody's fault. There's always 6 of one, half a dozen another. And yeah, you may not like their behaviour patterns. You may not like things that happen. You may not like their things that they do in life. But still, your reactions are your responsibility, and your boundaries are your responsibility. So if you don't like something, you don't have to live with it. But equally, you don't have to blame either.
I found myself the other day in my relationship feeling rejected, and so I found all the reasons and put it on my partner as to why he was rejecting me, and I went blah, 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 blah. And then the next day I thought, what was the problem, Sue? The problem was you were sitting in rejection and loneliness and isolation and insecurity, which you own yourself. But you very quickly put it on to somebody else. And then I had to apologise and say, I own that. I own that from childhood. I own that from my issues I haven't sorted. And I was really sorry. I had to go back and own it. And again, you talk about work with clients. When I was working with a student the other day, they'd split up from a relationship. And she said, I feel really hurt by him. I feel he has ruined my life and all the accusations that come. And I said, you earn your response to the way that he's treated you. Yes, he's done A, B, C wrong, but you can't change that.
No.
But you can own your response to it. Did you get angry? Did you feel rejected? Or did you go back into that behaviour and say, the behaviour, I think it's quite harmful and cruel, but I'm happy to work with it. I'm happy to have conversations about what's going on between the two of us.
Yeah.
And because I feel rejected, I'm happy to look at my issues and go away and think about it, because you're making me feel rejected, but I own that. And then there could have been healthy conversations in relationship. And if you're role modelling, I'm prepared to look at my behaviour, I'm prepared to change. You're also setting an example for the other person, aren't they?
Totally.
To say, look, why don't you take accountability as well?
But equally, and this is what we
Without
always
any
say.
expectation.
No, but easily, there's no expectations, and also you have no control over anybody else. The only person you have any control over is yourself, and we say this over and over again. You are responsible for your reactions. You are responsible for your behaviour. You are accountable, and if you want to blame others, that's fine, but as this beautiful quote says, the day you stop blaming others is the day you begin to discover who you truly are. And you know what, sometimes you won't like things about yourself, but you can change them because it's your life and you decide how you react. So there's things about all of us that we don't like, but again, that's why we're a work in motion all the time until the day we die. Things happen, we change it. We don't like that behaviour, so we upgrade that behaviour. And once we have different tools in our toolbox, we don't have to behave like that way anymore. We don't have to be the victim, or we don't have to go back into our subconscious, or those awful things like what you say, insecurities that are maybe brought on by childhood. So yeah, take a little look at yourself and learn.
The worst thing that can happen to you as a young person is to refuse to grow up. You refuse to grow up when you believe that someone else must take responsibility for your life and your circumstances. And again, we come back to accountability, taking responsibility and ownership. So the tips for today is, if you find yourself blaming somebody else, come back, take some time out, just think, sit in awareness, what's going on for me? What am I feeling? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling rage? Am I feeling insecurity? What is the actual root of that? If this person wasn't in my life, what is the root? Is it childhood? Is it something that a parent did, a teacher did, a friend did when you were very young? Work through it, sit in the pain. We always say to people, the healing is actually in the pain itself. Sit in the feeling, don't run from it, don't go to the fridge, don't have a social life, don't busy yourself, don't avoid it. Sit in the pain, feel it. That is the very healing where you will come through it.
And when you apologise to somebody, if you have done certain things or actions or said something, try not to use the word but. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have behaved like that. I take account. I'm accountable for my own behaviour. I own that. That wasn't the correct way to deal with it. I will try to be better next time. Yeah. I'm sorry. No buts.
And some exciting news. Our book has just come out. So if you haven't ordered it yet, go on to podswithposhandpool.com and order the book. It will be sent to you straight away. We've got copies.
I'm just going to show you a copy.
So for those of you that have sponsored us on Kickstarter, we are so thrilled to say your books are about to be popped into the post. So if you're overseas, I think it's going to take a while because postage is not very good during lockdown. But
we're doing
if
our
you're
best.
locally, then you should receive that quite quickly. If you live in Devonport, you can pop down to Paradox Books and order your copy in there, or they've got a supply as well. So do get a book and pass it on to your friends. And also what we're aiming for is we want to get a copy of the book into every New Zealand secondary school library within a year, because we want teenagers to know that somebody out there cares. When there's suicidal ideation, when there is lost dreams, failed relationships, the moment where that teenager's got nowhere to turn and no one to speak to, and they feel completely lost, we want them to access a book in the library. We want them to find the tools and tips to get through. So if you can purchase a book for a school, send us the name of a school, send us your message. We will write the message in the book, or we'll stick it on a sticker, and we will send it to the school in New Zealand.
Good morning, Kelly, and good morning everybody else who's watching, and thank you for watching. And yes, we agree, take accountability because it changes your life, and definitely buy a book because this will also change your life.
And for parents as well, the book is very much for parents to empower your teenagers through
everyone
difficult times.
Good morning, goodbye, and love, light and peace from us.
Or good
New
evening.
Zealand. Yeah, good evening, good morning.
Or good afternoon.
Two
all around
Ronnies.
the world. Whatever time of day
Au
it is for you.
revoir.